Hi, I'm Jeff Galloway, and you are listening to the Run, Eat, Drink podcast.
Welcome to the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We feature destination races from across the country. And after the race, we take you on a tour of the best local food and beverage to celebrate. So whether you are an elite runner or a back of the packer like us, you'll know the best places to accomplish, explore, and indulge on your next runcation. Hey, welcome to the Run, Eat, Drink podcast, episode 112. I'm your host, Amy.
And I'm your host, or co-host, Dana.
Yes, well, you host.
Sometimes.
Co-host. It doesn't matter. Tomato, tomato.
Well, you put me in front of a camera earlier when I finished my fourth run and the sixth run of, or 4 out of 6 runs in this Gauntlet challenge. Man, I can't talk.
Well, no, you're doing great.
We'll fix this in post.
It has been horribly humid and hot. And I will tell you that on our days off, I am so guilty of hitting the snooze button and not getting out there early in the morning. And I know as the run gets longer, the long run on the long run weekends, we're going to have to get up earlier.
You certainly are, because you're still training for the Chicago Marathon in October. I, on the other hand, just need to get up at my normal wake-up time and knock my runs out. And
I know.
I'd be happy, but on
So we don't fight the sun.
Yeah, my first day off coming off of my long week today, that just didn't happen.
And but it was important to get the run done. So I applaud you, because this is not only part of our Gauntlet Challenge series, but it is also, as we record this, May the 4th.
It is. And for those who don't know, that is the unofficial holiday of Star Wars Day. So
May the 4th be with you.
happy Star Wars Day, everybody.
Yeah.
And tomorrow, of course, is Cinco de Mayo. So on this week's episode, we're not only talking about the third and fourth run in our 6-run 60K Gauntlet Challenge.
Yes.
We are also going back a little bit to a restaurant we discovered on our way back home from the Donna half marathon weekend back in February.
Yes, at the very beginning of February. That was the last time that we traveled.
And we were very smart to say, we need to get some great photos of this place.
Yes.
Take some notes. This is awesome because we can use it in an upcoming episode. And little did we know, we wouldn't be traveling after that.
At all.
At all.
For months at a time.
And then once we are done with that, our friend Paul Cottrell joins us again. Paul, as you know, is a master distiller here in Southwest Florida, and he has been kind enough to create some unique, original cocktails inspired by the Infinity Stones for our 60K Gauntlet Challenge.
So I think this is a great show, because we can talk about how running continues here at home despite the cancellation of races throughout our race season thus far, that we're still motivated by challenges here at home, running challenges that support great causes. We can reminisce a little bit about our last road trip, and we can drink some awesome cocktails to celebrate the completion or earning of yet another set of Infinity Stones.
Yes.
Yeah. Stones, gems.
Stones or gems, depending on which version of the Marvel Universe you're talking about. But we are going to keep most of the discussion to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is the Marvel that most everybody is now familiar with.
Yeah, I have to defer to you because you have the vast amount of knowledge that I don't.
Well, I've got all the comic books in there if you want to read them. Just saying.
Yeah, I'll get on that.
Get right on that.
Eventually.
Yeah. Translation's never going to happen.
Maybe. I don't know.
So let's talk running.
Okay.
You've gotten ahead of me and you've stayed ahead of me all week. I had to play catch up today. So let's talk about runs 3 and 4 of this 6-part 60K Gauntlet Challenge. How were your runs?
Well, to stay ahead of you, it's not a race, really.
Well, no, but it just worked out because I had to work most of this week, so I didn't.
Yeah,
do much
you had a
running.
long work week, and I know I'm combating the foot issues that I'm having, so I know I have to be slow, and I don't want to head out there with you're just going to blow right past me, you know.
Well, again, we're not racing.
And it's not a race, but I have found in the last couple of months that running is a big stress reliever, and I like to get out there more often if my feet can take it.
I actually think that part of the reason you're having, and if you're late to the party and you haven't been following along the last couple of episodes, Amy's been fighting some plantar fasciitis.
Yeah.
Which usually the doctors tell you stay off your feet and don't exacerbate it. Of course,
Yeah.
runners are like, so you're saying I can run
A little.
right? So she hasn't exactly stayed off her feet, but she's been doing a lot of the icing and the
Rolling
therapeutic stuff.
and, yeah, all the things that. So I've been actually breaking up the 10Ks into shorter runs, companion runs.
Okay.
So a couple of 5Ks.
Oh, yeah.
With a break in between for the rolling and the icing and the just to be able to do that.
Oh, so you're actually like doing a 5K, then come in, roll in the ice, and then get back out and do more.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And like you, I started late. So, hello, it was super hot and humid.
Yeah, summer's definitely here for us.
Yeah. But I did some interval work on both of those runs. I just wanted to do some cadence drills, some acceleration gliders that inside of that distance, and then also some of the speed drills that Jeff Galloway has me doing. You know, the man that introduced our episode today.
Oh, yes.
The man I love.
Very familiar with that man.
America's coach.
So the you were doing the drills as part of the total distance.
Mileage, yeah. So really, I know that you have a different strategy for this Gauntlet series in that you're trying different intervals for time to see what you can get. And I'm taking a different strategy in that I'm doing the drills, covering the mileage, and that's how I'm getting it done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Yeah. I want to make sure that I keep my strides short, my turnover light. I want to work on that kind of
Posture.
Yeah, running form.
Mm-hmm.
Like Jeff says, I just want to make sure, and I think that this challenge series is a good way to incorporate some of those drills.
That makes sense.
And some of that training and to try out a few ratios in some of the speed drills and then just add up the total mileage over all of that. So that's what I've been doing, and that's really what I like about the flexibility of a virtual race.
Yes.
Yes.
There's no sweeper. The road's not shut down.
Right.
They're not trying to get you off the course as quickly as possible. So yeah, that makes total sense.
So I can experiment with some interval work. I can experiment with form and form drills and make sure that everything is still dialed in and take the necessary breaks I need to for my feet.
Yeah.
So that's been my strategy. And you are testing out some intervals of your own for speed.
Yeah, I've went kind of a very, I won't call it a very blunt approach, but it's a very straightforward approach, I guess.
Yeah.
With my very first run, I did all walking, and in fact, I had the dogs with me for the first 3 miles.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, there was no attempt at doing anything for speed at all. So that had me at an hour 51 minutes and change. The second race, I did some interval work, and I did 5 seconds of running and then 55 seconds of walking, and that had a marked improvement. It dropped almost 16 minutes off my time.
It's surprising, isn't it, that just that 5 seconds every minute?
Total surprise, especially and like I said, I think I mentioned on last week's episode, listener Wendell messaged us and was like, "Wow,
yeah."
I was very skeptical.
Love
but it's pretty incredible. So I did 5:55 for the second run. For this week's runs, I did a 10:50 for the Reality Stone 10K. And that gave me a total time of 1 hour, 30 minutes, 17 seconds.
Which is under Disney's requirement, actually, for a 10K.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
And that was just 10 seconds of running, 50 seconds of walking. Nothing crazy. Didn't have the dogs with me. Just decided I was going to go and run. And what I'm trying to do is see where am I going to get the maximum return for the power put in. So like if you're imagining on a graph, you've got this line that kind of goes up and then starts to flatten out. There's two lines. There's the power that you put in and then the speed that you generate. And I'm trying to find where those two lines intersect for me.
Okay.
And that's going to give me the best bang for my buck.
So you're looking for where is the interval going to be a point of diminishing return?
Right.
Right?
And what I will see is as I start to add more time, but then my time doesn't get any faster or it gets slower.
Right.
Then that's where I know that I need to back off.
Yeah.
So for today's run, as we record this, today I completed the Power Stone 10K. I did a 15-second running interval and a 45-second walking interval.
Which you say is your favorite interval.
I've had a lot of good results with that. I've done that at races, at timed races, at Disney events. At I believe I've used that one a couple of times at Gasparilla. So it's one that I'm pretty comfortable with. This shaved an additional 4 minutes and 11 seconds off of my time. So I went down to 1 hour, 26 minutes and 6 seconds for a 10K.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's a sub 14 minute a mile.
Look at you.
10K.
It's where I want to be.
And it was, aside from the heat and the humidity, and it really isn't even the ambient heat. That was not the problem because we had a good breeze going.
We actually did, but on our street we have no shade.
There is zero shade on our street. I actually took a photo. I was gonna put it out there and go, this is the problem with running where we live is there's no shade at all. I mean, other than like if you catch it at the right time in the morning when the sun's low enough in the sky, like
then you're good.
Some of the palm trees will give you like 4 feet of shade that you can run through. It's just brutal. And what was hard this morning was the sun. Not the ambient air temperature. It's the sun beating down on you. And I did put sunscreen on this time.
Yay!
So, my favorite sunscreen, again, not a sponsor, but love them to death, is Bullfrog because you put it on once and it stays on all day.
I like the Mosquito Coast, too, given the season we're heading into.
Oh, they're back.
Here?
In the evening, they're terrible.
Yeah.
The mosquitoes and the Mosquito Coast version of Bullfrog has the mosquito repellent built in. So it's great stuff. Yeah. But just adding an additional 5 seconds that shaved off an additional 4 minutes right there.
So as you head into the last two 10Ks, when we have the Time Stone and the Soul Stone next week, then what will you do for the Time Stone?
For the Time Stone, I'm thinking that I'm probably going to try a 2040.
Are you really?
I might try 2040.
You never do that.
And I don't. And I'm also getting a little bit concerned because this gets dangerously close to that interval that we were doing or that I tried during the Star Wars virtual.
Yeah.
Where it was a little too much running and not quite enough
2-to-1 ratio, like
rest.
a 15-30. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think I'm either going to do a 2040 or I might go crazy and do a 2060. Because a 2040 is a 1-to-2 ratio.
Yeah.
A 2060 is a 1-to-3 ratio.
True enough.
And I'm curious what that's going to do. And again, this is all for the sake of science. I could do the 2040, and that might be where I hit the wall as far as, or I might cross that threshold where I get the diminishing return. I'm not sure. So I'll settle on it as I kind of think about it this week. But I didn't have any real problems with fatigue, and I didn't have any real problems with pain other than just tight glutes and tight hamstrings this week. But that's just, I think, I could have stretched a little more. But all in all, felt really good. I liked the interval, and I'm kind of curious to see what my experiment yields in the last two races or two runs.
Yeah. So you said 2040, 2060.
I'm either going to do 2040 or 2060 and see how that goes.
And then for the Soulstone, are you going to do anything else to
I
mix
think
it up?
Soulstone is going to be very dependent on what the Timestone experiment yields.
Okay. Stay tuned for a full report. And I look forward to our run segment next week because I think we'll spend a brief time recapping our final 2 10Ks. But then we also have a fantastic interview with the people from Metal Chasers that provide this virtual race.
Yeah, they were kind enough to do a Zoom call
Bill
with
and
us
Christina.
and just kind of talk about themselves, their company, what they're doing. And this is a neat company that's doing all sorts of virtual runs regardless of your interests, your hobbies, the type of metals that you want, and they're making really good quality metals.
They're so great.
Bibs. So it's a great interview, and we're looking forward to bringing that one to you.
And I really like that they partner with charities, different kinds of charities, and they'll talk about that. But this one particularly with the Pinky Swear Foundation that benefits children and their families fighting cancer.
Yeah.
That's near and dear to our heart because we run the Donna every year to support those who are fighting breast cancer and their families. And so this one's near and dear to my heart, and anything we can do to support people battling that disease is I'm in on it.
Absolutely. So stay tuned for next week.
Mm.
But in the meantime,
Speaking
you mentioned
of
Donna.
the Donna. Yes.
Yeah. Donna was, like we mentioned at the show intro, that was the last travel race that we did. And that was back in February. And it was a good road trip for us. It's about a 5-hour drive from where we live down here in Southwest Florida. And on our way back, we like to try to make the trip, if we're going somewhere, part of the runcation. So we try to find cool places to go. Like on our way up, we stopped off at a couple of spots.
Yeah, we did Motorworks. And we talked about that.
And we also covered the RV and campground.
Linger Lodge.
Yes.
That you want to go back to for a Sunday Bloody Mary.
I really, really do. They are doing a lot of flashbacks on their Facebook page, and they're posting these pictures of some of their food and their Bloody Marys, and they do these insanely gorgeous, crazy Bloody Marys.
It's like a meal in and of itself.
Yeah, you wouldn't need to get anything else. So looking forward to doing a little day tripping back there. But
we did it on the way up.
We also did it on the way back.
Yeah.
And when you're up in Northeast Florida, you're up there near the Space Coast. You're also up near Saint Augustine, Florida.
Oh.
And Saint Augustine is the oldest city in the continental United States.
And I know we keep saying we've got to get up there and do a race.
We have been eyeballing races up there in Saint Augustine because it's a town with so much rich history, beautiful, just a beautiful tourist area, but also just beautiful natural beauty in the city as well. We want to share that with everybody, but on our way back, we decided to drive through and stop off at a couple of places for lunch and to grab a pint. And what we're going to talk about today is a food offering that we found there so that when travel resumes and people start planning vacations and you're thinking about maybe going up towards St. Augustine, we have a reason for you to go.
I mean, you as a kid would travel to historical place. You got a lot of history as a kid.
My parents were very big into that. My dad especially, and a lot of the places we traveled were Civil War battle sites, Revolutionary War historical sites. I've been to all the big ones, and St. Augustine is not one that we ever really went to. We went to Cocoa Beach. I got to go to, of course, to the Space Center several times, but never to St. Augustine with family. I'd been there in college, but not there particularly as a kid.
Well,
but the reason that I love it there so much is because of that enjoyment of history that I got as a kid.
Well, we would drive through there on the way up to visit family in Virginia when I was a kid.
Okay.
And I remember the little shops, and I remember like the cobblestone streets and the brick buildings, and just so to me, when you talk about Saint Augustine, it brings back memories of Christmas trips with family.
Yeah.
And it's so great.
And it was neat when we drove through there. Everybody was still, doing the normal touristy things. So you had
At that time, yeah.
At that time, and it was just tons of people walking the streets and enjoying the beauty of this old town.
So
And
beautiful.
just something that if you haven't been and you've ever been thinking about going, once we get back to traveling normally here in the U.S., this is a place that you should put on your list.
Yes, and not just only for those cobblestone streets and the sights and the shops, the beauty, the history, but also for some delicious tacos.
I know it sounds weird that we're going to suggest going to an old Spanish settlement to get delicious tacos from a brand new place, but trust us when we tell you, you will not be disappointed. We had the fortune of going to check out not only Osprey Tacos, but also its neighbor adjacent to it, Old Coast Ales.
Yes.
And Old Coast Brewing has they basically share a wall.
Yeah.
And we went over to Osprey, ordered our food, went over to Old Coast, got our beer, and they brought us our food over into the
While we were
into
having
the brewery.
a flight of beer.
Yeah.
At Old Coast Ales. So, I mean, we even had dessert over there.
Yeah.
And and the reason that we're flashing back to this, because not only was it our last trip, but this week it seemed kind of appropriate to flash back to it because it is Cinco de Mayo.
It is Cinco de Mayo. As this episode drops today, it will be May 5th.
Yes.
Of course, that is also Revenge of the 5th for
Yes.
our Star Wars fans out there. But Cinco de Mayo is a great excuse to go get some delicious Mexican food. And while some of the stuff that we got wouldn't be traditionally Mexican, the tacos that we got were, of course, Mexican inspired and absolutely some of the most flavorful tacos you could get anywhere.
Yes, and they have street tacos on their menu that they'll do in traditional style with cilantro, radish, onion, and a double corn or flour tortilla.
There's only one correct answer there. It's double corn.
Of course.
Just saying.
I love a corn tortilla.
I'm not judging people.
And I like that it's double.
Yeah.
And you're not judging people that...
who go for a flour tortilla.
No.
They're just wrong.
Well, does it not depend on the filling?
It absolutely depends on the filling. I'm just being facetious. It depends on the filling that you're getting.
It does. Because if you have like a heartier steak filling, like a fajita type thing, then I think maybe a heartier flour tortilla is the way to go.
Yeah, a tortilla that won't fall apart or pull apart if the filling is a little more toothsome.
Yes.
Right.
So there is a Tex-Mex style topped with cheddar, sour cream, lettuce, tomato, onion on a corn or flour tortilla. So you get to choose your tortilla in that area, and then they'll do rice and black beans, soy protein, ground beef, shrimp, pollo asado, carnitas, or carne asada, which is skirt steak, which I would do. But we ordered off the Boulevard tacos portion of their menu.
Yes.
And these are just... there are some clever combinations here at inexpensive prices.
Yeah. If you get like a plate of 3 tacos, you're looking at anywhere between $12 and $15. But these are huge tacos.
They are chocked full.
Yeah. And when you take a look at the episode artwork for this week, you're going to see what we're talking about. That 3-pack of tacos.
Yeah.
Great meal.
We overlapped on one taco.
Yeah, we did. Well, we're both huge fans of chorizo.
Yes, we are. So we
Chorizo's-
overlapped on that.
It's such a versatile sausage. You can do it for breakfast. You can do it for lunch or dinner. And I love the spice that it offers. I love the color that it imparts to dishes. I think it's just, it's absolutely one of my favorites.
I love chorizo, and this is Mexican style chorizo with crispy fries, cotija cheese, and house salsa verde. And when they say crispy fries, they mean it's like shoestring type.
It was like potato sticks.
Yeah, it's like potato sticks. So they were very small. It wasn't like here's humongous fries on your taco. No, but it was.
And that's a popular topping with a lot of Mexican or with Cuban restaurants.
Yeah, yeah. I loved this taco. It was spicy and salty with the cheese, and but there was like different textures with the crispy fries and the cotija cheese.
And you're also a huge salsa verde fan.
I love salsa verde.
Yeah, so if you've got like a tomatillo salsa, and there's so many different ways. Some places make the salsa verde, they're mild. Some places make the salsa verde, they're hot. It just depends on where you go.
That, I think, lent itself to a cooling effect.
Yes.
With this Mexican style chorizo that had some bite to it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I loved this taco.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel.
I was a huge fan of it. I didn't mind that we overlapped because this was just so good. And again, you get this huge portion of chorizo, and it's not sliced chorizo. You know, it's a nice
crumbles. Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if I've ever seen a place that's done it as a sliced. I don't think that would probably work too well, but
in breakfast dishes, like a breakfast bowl or things like that, it might.
Maybe.
You know? I don't know.
But they just did it so well, and you know, you've got the smokiness and the tartness and the heat but it's not an overwhelming heat. It's just enough to warm your tongue. And let you know it's there.
Yeah.
But you've got so much that red color from the smoked paprika that's in there. It's just fantastic, and that's why I like this. Like if you're doing like chorizo and eggs, if you're doing something like a huevos rancheros, and you wanted to add in some chorizo to that, yeah, so good. And I do love those fried shoestring potatoes.
I love them.
They're such a great crunchy element that accents food. A lot of Cuban restaurants will use that as a topping on some of their sandwiches, especially like steak sandwiches, or they'll even top just skirt steak or skirt steak. Usually, I think that's where I see it on. It's a great crunchy component. So it kind of reminds me as a kid putting potato chips on a sandwich to crunch it up.
Yes.
It's very similar to that in terms of the texture.
And it's just, I'm sorry, my mouth's
watering. I know.
Because it was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. And then you had a couple of unique tacos, and I think I would say typical for me on one, but not so typical on another.
Yeah, I went with a couple of items that they had that were very unique, to say the least, and not something you would typically see served as a taco.
Yeah.
They had what they called their Cuban, and this is inspired by a Cuban sandwich. And the Cuban taco had pulled pork, Swiss cheese, pickles, a mustard aioli, and then topped with prosciutto ham. So this was very much a nod to the Cuban sandwich, which is something I grew up on, being a Tampa native.
So good.
And it, while not, of course, it's not completely accurate to what a Cuban sandwich would be, it had enough of the components there, and it was such a great nod to the flavors and the textures that you would get. And seeing that served in a taco, what a great way to enjoy those flavors. You get the pulled pork, so it's pork shoulder, pork butt, and you're getting a generous helping of that. So that gives you kind of your base of the the meatiness of the taco. You know, the Swiss cheese gives you a little bit of a nuttiness and a creaminess. The pickles give you the dill and the tart and the tang.
Like a briny kind.
Yeah. And a little bit of a salty component. The mustard aioli, of course, gives you some more moisture, and it also gives you the hint of the yellow mustard that you need if you're doing a true Cuban. But then they topped it with prosciutto ham. And the prosciutto ham is that razor thin slice laid right on top, and it's just, you know, this perfect salty, porky flavor that is, I mean, it comes from the same animal as the pulled pork, but it's a completely different textural and flavor element than the pulled pork. So it's just fantastic.
Oh, so good.
Yeah.
So
and then I went a totally different route with my last taco.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one I wasn't sure if it was going to work.
You ordered it and I was like, is this really going to happen? Because I thought you would go. They have an avocado taco.
Which I almost got.
And I thought, oh, are you going to go there? But you totally zigged when I thought you were going to zag. And you got...
I got the Sprout. It's called the Sprout on the menu. And this is a taco filled with crisp fried Brussels sprouts, a black bean puree, pickled onions, cotija cheese, and something they call their Baja sauce. The crisp fried Brussels sprouts, number one, if you're doing Brussels sprouts, if you grew up as a kid and the only Brussels sprout you ever had was the microwave steam and bag, sad little green mushy things.
So sad.
And you learn to hate them because of that. I'm going to urge you, find a place that's really doing them, you know, like charred, grilled, griddled, you know, roasted, whatever, you know, get some real cook on them as opposed to steaming them.
Yeah. And
you might change your mind because the flavor that you got from these were just phenomenal. It was a little bit spicy. It was a little, and when I say spicy, it was almost like the center of a Brussels sprout when cooked properly almost has a hint of horseradish to it. A little bit. And, you know, you get a little bit of the crisp of the outer leaves and you get the softness of some of the inner leaves. And you get that little, just like almost a waft in the air of horseradish from Brussels sprouts.
Yeah.
But you got that. The black bean puree kind of acted almost like a mayonnaise.
Ooh.
So you had this nice creamy glue holding it all together. The pickled onions were your sharp and tangy element. The cotija cheese was your salty component, and then the Baja sauce was a little tangy, a little spicy. Yeah, I mean, it was such a surprisingly good taco.
Yeah,
and a component I've never ever seen served in a taco.
I have never seen a Brussels sprout taco. An avocado taco, yes.
Yes.
But never the sprout. It was all new to me.
And it was huge.
Yeah.
All the tacos are huge, and you know.
But I think when they double that corn tortilla, it supports all of the rich elements that are in the taco.
Yes, absolutely.
All of those different layers of flavor. And that is what I experienced. I got something called the San Diego, which is the typical one for me because, you know, if I have an opportunity to have skirt steak, I'm going to have it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to pass this one up.
Skirt steak, crispy fries, avocado, cilantro, onion, and salsa verde. Big surprise for me, I'm sure.
But it's such a classic combo.
I love, skirt steak and the tomatillo salsa. Just,
It's a nod to chimichurri sauce.
Yeah, it's a nod to chimichurri sauce, but it's not as vinegary or tangy or, you know what I mean? Like that. I think that it just cradled the skirt steak just right, and the skirt steak had some char on it, but then also had some tender pieces as well. And the crispy fries added that crunch you've talked about before, because that's a common element throughout their menu.
Right.
And the cilantro, the crisp onion, and just they are masters at this place of creating different layers of textures when you take a bite.
Which is something you often don't get in tacos, and especially like fast food or quick service places.
Because you have the creamy avocado, you have the greenery, the cilantro to add that fresh element, and the crisp onion. And it was just, I mean, a little squirt of lime, and you were just, if you like skirt steak, you're in heaven.
Yeah, and skirt steak, I mean, for such an inexpensive cut of beef, if it's done right, it is so tender and flavorful, and it's perfect for a taco.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because, you know, you have those long strips and everything just comes together the right way. So I liked that a lot. And this last one was just, I don't think I've ever seen it on a menu at a taqueria.
No.
Or a Mexican place that we've been to.
No.
Which is a pork fried rice taco.
It just sounds wrong.
So it's like Asian Mexican
but it sounds
fusion.
So right.
Asian Mexican fusion. It has crispy pork, griddled rice, scallions, sriracha aioli, and hoisin. So,
lay it out for us.
The crispy pork was just, you know, I mean, I can't. Okay. It's pork. It's great. It's the salty meatiness, and then the griddled rice. I mean, it's such a throwback to, like, you know, to fried rice in Asian cuisine.
Sure.
And such a different texture from the meat. But then the scallions add the fresh crunch vegetable element, and the sriracha aioli adds the kick that you would come to expect from spicier Asian food.
Sure.
And then the hoisin adds the sweet soy element. And you don't, it's like you talked about with the Brussels sprout, the sprout taco. Mm-hmm. You don't think it's going to work. But, oh boy, it does.
When I saw this on the menu, I almost got this one. This reminded me of like something that you've gone out for an evening out on the town. You've had maybe a little too much to drink.
Oh, my God.
You're hungry before bed, and you go to the fridge, and you're like, what do I have?
Yeah.
I got some leftover Chinese food, and oh, look, I don't want to have to use a spoon or a fork, or certainly not chopsticks. This is too hard. What do I have?
Roll it up.
Roll it up. I got a tortilla here.
Yeah.
And you just go for it.
But, I mean, they have taken such care with each ingredient and having each element. And so it is maybe late night hangover food done right.
Oh, yeah. I could totally see going to this place like, 10, 11 o'clock in the evening.
Oh.
And, yeah, this would be a great late night stop.
Yeah, it would be fantastic. And I will tell you, we had, just an aside, we had churros from there as dessert. And they were fantastic. Piping hot, crispy, cinnamony goodness.
Yes.
So I, just as a bonus, highly recommend.
So what you're saying to people is, if you are going to get back to doing some runcationing, you find yourself at the Donna, maybe this coming February, and you're looking to explore a little bit of Northeast Florida, and you make your way down towards
Saint Augustine. Stop here.
Yeah.
Stop here.
Absolutely. Or I would even say, if you're going to do Space Coast, any of the Space Coast marathon or half,
sure.
any of that series, make the drive up. It's not too far.
Yeah.
And it's day trippable, and there's plenty to do in Saint Augustine.
Yeah, and I will shout them out also, because in exploring their Facebook page, I believe that they have done some deliveries and supported some frontline workers, some healthcare workers.
Fantastic.
And I just can't wait to get back and support them on the next drive up to Donna.
Yeah, and you are going to get the extra bonus that they are adjacent to a pretty fantastic brewery.
Yes. Old Coast Ales. Highly recommend.
Yeah.
Highly recommend. They've got some great variety in their beer menu. And I would just highly recommend that. You know,
They may find themselves as a drink segment in an upcoming episode.
yeah. And speaking of the drink segment, I am super thirsty right now.
This week, we are joined yet again via Zoom conference by our friend and master distiller, Paul Cottrell. Paul, welcome to the Runny Drink Podcast.
Oh, man.
Again.
Always a pleasure to hang out with you guys.
We love it.
Paul, what do you have for us today for the Reality Stone, which is the first stone that we
Cool.
Yes.
earned?
So, the Reality Stone is interesting in its power. Its power is very kind of clouded in mystery in the Marvel universe, in that it controls reality, which is a very vague statement to say. None to say. But with the Reality Stone, considering that it's the way it functions cocktail wise, I wanted something that was kind of simple and assertive, but breaking out an ingredient that we throw just a tiny little bit into, and it completely changes the landscape of the drink. So it's kind of like that idea of changing reality. We're going to change the drink with literally like a tablespoon of one ingredient, which we'll get to in a second.
Okay.
But here we go. Shaker, right? First ingredient is going to be whiskey. Now I'm going to say whiskey here. What do you drink? What do you like? If you want just regular, straight whiskey, go for it. Maybe you're a bourbon fan. Maybe you're an Irish whiskey fan. Maybe you're a Japanese whiskey fan.
Is it either or, really?
Well, so don't tell like a bourbon head that bourbon is whiskey. That's like.
Can't we like them all?
A bourbon is whiskey, but not all whiskey is bourbon.
Right.
Let's be very
Nailed
clear.
it. Correct.
Yes.
Whiskey is a very kind of general category. All things that fall under that category are considered whiskey, right? Bourbon is whiskey. Rye is whiskey. If you look at like a bottle of rye, it says rye whiskey on it.
Yeah.
It's just a style of whiskey. So using the broader term here, whiskey, if you went towards rye, you would get more of like a peppery kind of a note. If you went Japanese whiskey tends to have a lot more fruity, subtle tones to it. But a good straight American style whiskey, everybody's seen the square black bottle, right? That's a good place to start. And then you decide whether or not you want to go down more the bourbon route or another kind of whiskey route. We need 1.5 ounces.
I was going to just say some of the Japanese whiskeys that are coming on scene in the United States are really pretty impressive. The Japanese came on strong.
Japanese whiskey is my new love affair, if I can say that. It is just, there's so much creativity behind Japanese whiskey. The Japanese did such a good job controlling the overall flavor profile of the finished product. You get 5 Japanese whiskeys, and man, although they're made very similarly, they turn out drastically different from each other. Right?
So 1.5 ounces.
We got 1.5 ounces. We're going to need some bitterness here because we're going to add some sweet in a second, and the bitter is going to come from lime juice. If you wanted to do something really fun here, and if you have the access to blood orange juice, right, or something that's going to help. You remember the Reality Stone's red.
Yes.
So we want to play towards that red color.
Yeah.
Right. So blood orange would be another kind of layer of that color. And we're basically at this point making a basic whiskey cranberry sour, right? A sour with bourbon, simple syrup, and lime juice. We're just going to replace the simple syrup with a little bit of cranberry juice instead, right? So cranberry is going to be a little tart. It's going to be a little sweet.
But not as sweet as if you used a straight simple.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Now, what you'll notice is because of the whiskey, right? It's red, but it's cloudy, right? And that's the combination of the bourbon and the lime juice, right? We want to really keep that red color. So one of these ingredients that bar people tend to have kind of in their wheelhouse, just in case they need it, is this little thing called grenadine. Now, real grenadine is pomegranate syrup that's been reduced.
Not cherry.
No, real grenadine is pomegranate.
Okay.
Like traditional homemade in a bar is pomegranate. The stuff you get in the grocery store, you ready? Mind blown?
Yes. Yes.
Doesn't have any flavor in it at all. It's just red simple syrup.
Oh.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
The idea there being that it's used at this point for nothing more than adjusting the color of the drink. It's a
Yeah.
glorified way of adding food coloring to a cocktail, right? If you're going to add something sweet, grenadine adds sweet plus it's red.
Mm.
Some of the grenadines out there, the classic grenadines, kind of like what you're thinking, are cherry. You know, a lot of people think that the stuff inside a maraschino cherry jar is grenadine.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that flavor profile. Real grenadine is going to be much deeper, and you're still going to get that red color, but the pomegranate syrup is going to completely change the flavor profile. Real classic grenadine, it is a real ingredient in a cocktail.
My mind
Where
is officially
here-
blown.
Oh.
Where here, all we're really trying to do is modify the color and really bring out that red in this drink. Right? So you see, I got the cap of the grenadine bottle. This is a really easy way to start measuring grenadine. Right, grenadine is a how much do you want in your drink? How colorful do you want your drink? So you take one cap and you toss it in, right? And then you just give the drink a shake. And then at this point, if you want it to be a little redder, open the shaker, toss another capful in there, shake it again. Remember, the grenadine is serving no purpose here than to make this cocktail pretty. That's it, right? So that's what we're going to try to accomplish here. Now, I pre-made this drink so I could look at the color, and I know one capful is going to get it where I like it to be. If you want it to be a little darker, please put some more red in there, right?
Okay.
So now we've got our drink, and then there you go. Right?
Look
Look
at
It's got this
it.
beautiful shade of red, and again, it would be a deeper red if you added a little bit more grenadine into it. But to me, I don't want to overly sweeten the drink. I like the kind of nice little tart note that the cranberry brings. In the next stone, you're going to see a little bit of kind of a similar setup of a cocktail that's completely in another direction because of the change in the sweetness.
Well, why don't you use that infinity gauntlet of yours over there?
Oh, it's here somewhere. Where did I put it? My daughter probably took it. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. Incoming. There it is.
Look at that.
There it is.
All right, let's see. Nice and red.
I already started.
Cheers. And let's take a sip and see how this turned out.
Whiskey and cranberry is such an underutilized kind of flavor. You know, whiskey and cranberry plays well together when you do it correctly.
And I can see why you limit the grenadine.
Yeah, right. Because it's a little on the sweet side, right? But if you got it too sweet, the cocktail, the balance would just be all thrown off.
Yeah,
right.
And then the whiskey would be hidden.
Right. There'd be no harmony. You know, those really kind of nice flavors of the whiskey would disappear behind the sweetness. But here they can still be nice and apparent.
And I can also see how this drink would change depending on whether you use, say, a bourbon, a rye, or an Irish whiskey, because those have very distinct. A lot of people who aren't into whiskeys will go, "Oh, they all taste like gasoline," or whatever. And they have very distinct flavors, or even variations within types of bourbons. If you used something that was a more traditional bourbon versus a wheated bourbon that's going to be smoother, you would get a totally different cocktail.
Oh, sure. And that's probably that conversation can be as long as we want it to be.
Well, and now you all have made me curious as to what Japanese whiskey would do with this.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
So the kind of the weird part is it's really in the way that the Japanese do their fermentation process. Japanese whiskey is actually bourbon. The way it's produced, it qualifies as a bourbon,
except for the whole part about being made in the United States.
Yeah.
Well, right. That's when you start talking about, if we were to be talking about the Japanese bourbon industry, we'd be talking about the struggling Japanese bourbon industry, because the bourbon people wouldn't get past it. But because they were smart enough to call it Japanese whiskey, we're talking about the thriving Japanese whiskey business, right? Because they avoided something that people have a very strong opinion about it. That would be a little bit like an American whiskey. That'd be like Jack Daniel's saying, "Hey, we made a single malt peaty Scotch."
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it's just there'd be riots in the streets. You know what I mean? It's like
Those are fighting
the
words.
Scottish make Scotch, the Irish make Irish whiskey, the Japanese make Japanese whiskey. It falls under the category of bourbon. It drinks completely differently than something like a heavy corn bourbon would, as opposed to maybe like a malted bourbon or a sweeter bourbon. You know.
Right. Well, now
It is definitely a good start for people who are just getting into the whiskey business. Boy, you really like that drink, huh? Yeah.
That's not terrible, and I'm a whiskey fan, so yeah, that is definitely the way to go. Plus, I just did my run today, and I'm rehydrating. Now,
Right.
I think this does a great job of representing the Reality Stone.
I do too.
It's nice and deep red. It is kind of to borrow a term that was thrown around with some science fiction movies the past couple of years, it subverted my expectations, and it did kind of change my perception of reality a little bit. I was going to say, now, a lot of people are like, the Reality Stone. I don't really remember the Reality Stone.
That's true.
If you think back in the movies, it was first introduced in Thor: The Dark World.
Right.
And it was referred to as the ether. Okay, so now that we have nailed down the cocktail for the Reality Stone, let's talk about the second stone that we earned this week, and that is the Power Stone. First introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in the orb on Morag that you see Star-Lord attempting to retrieve at the beginning of the movie when he's lip syncing. Talk a little bit about Power Stone and what you got set up for us for the cocktail representing that most powerful of stones.
The stone that made Star-Lord famous.
Yeah.
Love it.
It was a great scene.
The Power Stone is one of those stones that in the Marvel universe as a whole, regardless of whether you're a comic fan, a television fan, an animated fan, or the movie fan, the Power Stone had one of the most straightforward powers of all of them. You were just a big beefy dude when you had the Power Stone. Like you were just very strong. You had the capability of being very strong. So obviously, thinking about the way the Power Stone functions, we wanted to kind of make a stronger drink. Right? We didn't want to do just kind of more of like a lighter drink. We wanted to do something a little bit stronger. So we're going to make kind of a version of a martini here that's a little kind of off the rails. The first thing you're going to see is my martini glass, right? And my martini glass has ice in it.
You are pre-chilling the glass.
Nailed it. Don't put cold drinks in warm glasses.
Oh, you only do
right?
that
So
once
this is
in a
actually what
track.
we're going to use to shake with. Right?
Okay.
So a cocktail in the shaker with no ice. We're going to transfer this into the shaker, shake it, and then strain it. So that's going to give us a cold vessel for the drink. Plus, it's going to give us a cold way of shaking by utilizing this ice. With this cocktail, we're going to go back to whiskey again. For this particular one, I'm going to bourbon because I like the way that bourbon flavors play in this particular drink. And the other thing we're going to do here is not go straight bourbon. We're going to use bourbon and vodka here. The idea being that the bourbon would almost be too assertive here in this drink. We want some of those other flavors to kind of come out, but we want the power of the cocktail, if you will, the strength of the drink to stand. Right? So if you're going to put 2 ounces of bourbon in something, you can put an ounce of bourbon and an ounce of vodka in something. The vodka is just there to be booze, right? Vodka doesn't really have much in the way of a flavor to it, but it gives you the cocktail the ability to have a little bit more punch.
Okay.
So that's what we're using here. We're using an ounce of bourbon and then a half an ounce of vodka. If you wanted to go up to a full ounce here, you are more than welcome to. Just depends on how strong you want the drink, right? And just like any cocktail we've made so far, cocktails need balance. We're going to add some sweet ingredients here. So we're going to use a little lime to kind of be that balance between the sweet and the strong, and we need a bitter component. So that's what that's going to be. Now, the Power Stone, everybody knows the Power Stone, of course, is purple, right? And purple colors are a little bit on the difficult side to do cocktail world. Your easy way out is actually a purple ingredient, that purple ingredient being something called creme de violet. And if you're not a gin fan, you're definitely not going to be a creme de violet fan. It is literally violet, like you think about flower liqueur. So it's a little on the sweet side, and it's purple. And it'll be a great way to make a cocktail. But we're going to go back to kindergarten, right? And if we want to make something that's a little easier and a little more approachable, we remember that blue and red make purple. There you go. So we're going to go back to our good buddy blue curacao here, because that's going to be our blue note. The other thing this is going to do is be our sweet note, right? We're missing the sweet component here. So the blue is going to bring color, and it's going to bring sweetness. And we're going to go back to that first cocktail we made and saying that the blue curacao here is dependent on color. I wouldn't go any farther than 1.5 ounces.
Okay.
Because then you're going to get too sweet and too orangey, and the bourbon's going to disappear.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Right, so I'd start with like 1 ounce, shake it, and then if you need more grenadine, add more grenadine. Right. So speaking of grenadine, did I say grenadine too fast there? I think I did, because that is, of course, the last thing that we need here to help bring the red in. And then with the grenadine, you're going to do the same thing. You're just going to add a tiny little touch of grenadine. You're going to shake it, and then if you can adjust the color with either ingredient, right, on the other side. So just a little bit here, and then we're going to get our ice back, right? We need our ice in our shaker because cold drinks taste good.
You know, that you said that very offhandedly, but it's actually true. The temperature that a drink is served at absolutely affects the way it plays on your palate and the flavors that come out.
Absolutely. A lot of what happens when you make a cold, especially alcohol, is that you lose some of the nose of the drink, right? And that does affect the way that it tastes. But on the other side, you use very assertive flavors so that the nose still comes out, right? So there's, at the end of the day, there's absolutely a place for cold drinks, a place for room temperature drinks, a place for hot drinks. There's an application for every single one of those. And I don't know about you guys, but we strained this, and I think we did a pretty good job of hitting the purple.
That is
and just remember, guys, you might end up with a very, very slightly different shade of purple, depending on the blue curacao you use, the grenadine, how much you use.
Right.
Just be careful. Again, the blue curacao and the grenadine are very sweet. So you could kind of throw this cocktail a little off balance by making it too sweet or not sweet enough. So start with kind of the base that we have there, which I would say would be 1 ounce of blue curacao and 1/2 of one of your caps of grenadine, and then adjust the color from there. You guys thirsty? Can I send you one of these?
Send us one of those. Bring it over. Send it over here. Luckily, we've mastered space and time on this podcast.
The blue curacao brings such an interesting flavor profile here. Something like bourbon and orange are not normally brought together, but making it a little sweet and bringing some of that orange into the drink really makes a huge difference in the way it drinks.
The only time I ever see bourbon and orange paired is in the classic old-fashioned preparation.
Sure, absolutely,
but not as a martini.
I'm just nuts.
I don't like it.
I just like to do really crazy things for the sake of cocktail science, you know. So there's pretty much nothing I won't mix together at least once.
Now
powerful.
Yeah, I was gonna say the deceptive part of this is it's very smooth, but that's all booze.
It's mostly booze. Yeah, there is 1 ounce and a splash of not alcohol. So that's why this goes in a martini glass. That's why this is not a big rocks tall drink. This is definitely one you would hang out with for a while. And,
I agree.
It's powerful.
It is powerful.
I like it.
And very much like the Power Stone and its depiction in Guardians of the Galaxy, this one might be best shared among a couple of people so that the full force of it's not coming down on one person and destroying them. Well, this is an amazingly powerful drink.
Yes.
I could go down this rabbit hole all evening long. We are going to have to seriously talk about doing a separate geekery podcast here. Because
that's happening. There's no talking. It's just we just have to wait for the Rona to go on vacation, and then that's totally happening.
I love it. Well, Paul, we cannot thank you enough for joining us via Zoom and doing these 2 cocktails for us. We have 2 more stones to earn before we have completed our Gauntlet challenge, and we can't wait to have you back.
2 of my favorite discussions.
Yes. So.
Oh, I can't wait. Amy's gonna have some stuff on the next one.
Oh, maybe when we get to the Soul Stone, we might earn our explicit tag when we get to talking about. Talk about Black Widow.
PG-13, Amy. Oh, yeah. You're sad about Black Widow, huh?
Yeah. Oh my
gosh. Are you
disappointed?
You were disappointed.
So disappointed.
Still mad about it.
Are you kidding?
But that's for next week.
You know what, Amy? You know what, Amy? Or you know what Dana and I did when Black Widow dies? Like, yeah, we We know.
We knew it was going to happen.
We-
Yes, I know.
we know.
I got it.
But again, comic book dead's not dead.
I even think.
No, comic books dead's never dead.
No. So with
Keep
that,
telling me that.
well, Paul, thank you again for joining us. We love having you on the show, and we will talk to you again next week.
Oh
Cheers, my
yeah, I'm
friend.
excited, guys. Have a great one, guys. Cheers. Yep, here you go.
He is, I can't call him Captain Cocktail.
I don't know. Captain
Like,
Cocktail may stick. I like that.
Cocktail wizard, a cocktail expert. I don't know. He is a master distiller and
Mad scientist.
mad scientist who creates some amazing drinks.
Well, I can't wait to see what he's got in store for us next week. He is going to be featuring the last two beverages to celebrate the last two stones that we have, which is the Time Stone and the Soul Stone. And I've heard whispers that there may be a bonus Infinity Gauntlet cocktail that he's going to do for us.
I hope so.
So
I really do.
stay tuned for that.
Oh. For now, though, we're going to wrap up this episode and we're going to say, next week we finish and we earn our final 2 stones to complete our Gauntlet medal.
Yes.
We have that incredible interview with Metal Chasers, Bill and Christina. And I just can't wait to wrap it up and share it with everybody.
Yeah, and we want to say thank you to everybody who has been leaving us ratings and review on Apple Podcasts and on Podbean. I know just in the last week we picked up over 110 new followers just on Podbean alone.
Oh,
So thank you guys and welcome to the Runcation Nation. We are
Yes.
very happy to have you. We've also been adding a ton of people following us on Facebook. So thank you very much for that. If you aren't, please do.
Yes.
Drop us a quick like and follow along. Jump in on the conversations for the various things that we're posting there. We love having you. But what we would love is if you'd keep those ratings and reviews coming over on Apple Podcasts.
Yes.
This week. That would really help us. It helps us get discovered and helps grow the Runcation Nation.
and we really appreciate it. And we're just so happy that you are liking what we do.
And supporting us right now, especially supporting us, period, but especially right now when your humble travel podcast can't travel.
Yes.
So your support right now means the world to us.
Yes. So thank you once again for taking us along on your long runs, when you are cleaning around the house, wherever you are. Through all this, we love you, we appreciate you, and thanks for listening to this week's episode. For now, I'm your host, Amy.
And I'm your co-host, Dana.
And we will talk to you really soon. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Run, Eat, Drink podcast. We're having a great third year because of your support. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Run, Eat, Drink podcast. And on Twitter, we're at Run, Eat, Drink pod. You can also give us a call at 941-677-2733 or shoot us an email at info@runeatdrink.net. Visit our website at runeatdrink.net and click on the subscribe link so you don't miss a minute. Accomplish, explore, and indulge right along with us. We'll talk to you next time.